PowerPoint presentations are used to go over all sorts of data to just sales, result projections, and any day-to-day business operation. These things are much better suited for tables. Now you can create a great looking table right from PowerPoint. The first thing we're going to do is create a new slide, and we'll give it a title and a content. I'll call it Product Sales. Now in the content area, I can click Insert Table. I'm going to be prompted for the amount of columns and rows I need to put it in it. Don't worry if you don't know how many you need right away, because you can easily add and remove anything after the fact. So let's start with our 4 columns and maybe 6 rows. That's probably enough to get me started. I'm going to click OK, and here's my base table. Now there's a lot of formatting we can do, but before we do any of that, the first thing I'm going to do is start entering my actual data in there. So I have got my header rows. I'm going to start typing. Now to move to the next cell, just hit the Tab key on your keyboard. This even works to move down to the next row. So all you have to do is hit Tab, type and hit Tab. Now I'm all done entering my data and I've got an extra row. That's fine. I'm going to go over to the Layout ribbon toolbar and choose Delete. Now I can choose to delete columns, delete rows, or delete the entire table. In this case, I just want to delete a row, because my cursor is currently in the row I want to delete. I'm going to go ahead, select Delete Rows. Now in time I can click my mouse into any of these cells and alter any data if I made a mistake. So now we're ready to start formatting our table. The first thing I'm going to do is stretch it out a little bit, because I have got a very large slide and plenty of room to work with. So I'm going to put my cursor at the end of this little dot in the center and click and drag and slide the mouse all the way down. Now I can stretch my table out as far as I need to, and it just gives the data a little bit more breathing room. Now I can actually start changing the colors and changing the fonts and things. So I'm going to go back to my Design toolbar button. Now the first thing I can do is change the table style options. For example, right now the header row of my table is different color than the rest of the table. I can uncheck header row and it will blend in with the rest of the table. I personally think that's going to confuse people, so I'm going to leave that option on. I can also uncheck whether I want my rows banded or not, which is alternating every other color. I'm going to turn that one back on too. I could put a total row in. I can make it a little bit clearer by making that darker. But in this case it doesn't apply to me, so I'm going to uncheck that. I can also choose whether I want to have my first column bold-faced or if I want to band columns instead of rows. Next I can actually choose my table styles. All this does is just change the color and some more options to give me some more things to choose from. For example, I can have light columns or medium colored columns. It's up to me. I can hover my mouse over until I find one that I like. I can also choose the shading of my table. I can make it match my theme's color a little bit. I can highlight any cell that I want and also change the shading of those cells. One of the last things I can do is change the cell alignment. I think all my numbers would be much better suited if they were aligned to the right of the cell. So I'm going to highlight these cells. So back to the Home tab, and in the paragraph options, choose Align Right. It's going to push all the data over to the very rightmost cell. Now for the header cells, I want these centered. So I'm going to click and drag to the highlight at those cells, and now click Align Center. I'm going to do the same thing with the color because it looks a little bit out of place. The product name, however, can stay just as it is. There's one more thing I want to do. I'm going to put a border around the entire table, just so it stands out a little bit more on the slide. I'm going to do that by selecting the entire table, going back to my Design tab, going over to Borders and selecting Outside Border. Now I can choose to put a border however I want. For example, if I want all my cells to have a border, or if I want to continue to have no border. So I put an outside border on and it just stands out a little bit more. So up next we'll paste a table in directly from Excel.